So, revered Swami Tyagarupanda Maharaj Ji, the secretary and member of the Ramakrishna Mission Mott, Malda, which is an esteemed seat of education and learning. Our learned members of the faculty present, especially Varun sir and Ishita ma'am, my dear peers, and most importantly, every attendee of today's session, I consider this a proud privilege to have the opportunity of participating in this webinar. Varun sir, I would now like you to introduce Maharajji to us.
Yeah, a very good evening to one and all. It's an honor for me to get a chance to give a welcome address to fill in on behalf of my director, who due to some urgent meeting could not join this meeting. So she asked me to convey her apologies to Swamiji and the participants. We at Symbiosis School of Economics and on behalf of the TEDx Club of MSc Student Council, we are hosting this talk to be delivered by by revered Swami Tyagarupanda Ji Maharaj. My apologies if I mispronounced the name. And just I would like to say a couple of sentences about Swamiji. Swamiji has done his PhD from ISI Kolkata, and the topic of his PhD was related to measurement of inequality and poverty. Dr. Shirish Limaiji once said, he shared with me that Swami Ranganathan Ji Maharaj once said, I am a sannyasi of Ramakrishna Mission Ashram. That itself is my greatest introduction. So here we have Swami Tyagarupananda Ji Maharaj, who is the secretary and the member of Ramakrishna Mission Ashram, Malda in West Bengal. With this, I would like to welcome all the participants who have gathered here. I feel myself privileged to be part of this session, and I would really urge all my students also to let us learn today from Swamiji about the thoughts of Swami Vivekananda on unity as a basis of ethics. Feel free to ask all your questions, all your doubts during either you can put it in the chat box or after the event. With this, I welcome each and everyone and would request Amrita to take the session forward.
Varun, would you kindly brief me on the audience profile? That is, how many could be the approximate number of students or other faculty members?
Yeah.
Just to get me an idea.
Sir, out of this 36 participants, 32 are students only. Only 3 of us are faculty members. Ishita, me are there, and Aditi Mishra ma'am. So we have 4-5 faculty members and we have 32 students. And the students are from they are from all parts of India. Half would be around 60% are pursuing their masters in economics, whereas few students, around 10-12 students, are pursuing their bachelors in economics.
Okay. Right.
Mostly it is economic. They are pursuing a graduate or a postgraduate program in economics. Sir.
Right.
Over to you, Amrita.
Yes.
Man is the maker of history, said Will Durant in his book, The Lessons of History. Standing at the threshold of the platinum jubilee of our great independence, we remember many great souls. Of all of those stars, Swami Vivekananda ji had shown up the importance of harmony, integrity, and strength in spirit and vitality. If we cast a close look at our freedom struggle, we may find that there were 2 groups of leaders who propelled India towards her independence, one led by Gandhiji and the other by Swami Vivekananda, Netaji, my bad. But it is to be noted here that even if they had their different ideologies and philosophies, both of them were equally influenced by the principles and teachings of Vivekananda ji. I would really love to hear from Maharaj, and I wish that he enlightens us on the spirituality and morals of Vivekananda ji, on how he tried of consolidating India and showed us that unity forms the most important ethic of all. Over to you, Maharaj ji.
So it was a very quick introduction.
Right, we are almost running late.
Okay. So I'm really grateful that I get the opportunity to speak to students and faculty members of the Symbiosis School of Economics. So as I was mentioning during the chat, in addition to my studying economics at the graduate, undergraduate and the postgraduate level, I had also taught economics at the Ramakrishna Mission Undergraduate College, located near our headquarters, for close to 24 years. So in a sense, I would say, economics has almost gone into my blood. So this, in a sense, makes you as fraternity members for me. When I speak to students of economics, I feel I'm more easily into waters than say history or physics or chemistry. So the topic, as you all know, is unity as a basis of ethics, and that according to Swami Vivekananda. So since you are students of economics, I would start with one interesting observation by Swami Vivekananda. He said that I am a socialist because I do not believe that socialism gives us a full doctrine, but because half a loaf is better than none, he had said. So in the days of Swami Vivekananda, you must remember, it is about 120 years earlier we are speaking, the socialism and communism dogmas or doctrines had been launched. But still, the Bolshevik Revolution had not occurred, and neither had the Chinese Revolution. Just to recount history, the Bolshevik Revolution occurred in 1917. So that was definitely years later, because Swami Vivekananda passed away in 1902. Karl Marx himself passed away in the 1880s. And as all of you will be knowing, especially students of economics, Marx and Engels are credited to have written Das Kapital, which is, in a sense, is a Bible for communism and socialism. I had been fortunate to study as one course at the postgraduate level, economics of Marx. So because we are speaking about unity and ethics, you must remember that these are doctrines which stem from the very idea of unity, actually. Of course, their idea of unity probably wouldn't be acceptable to all, because many people have an anathema towards communism, but you must understand why such a doctrine came. It came because they were pained to see the condition of the labor class, the condition of the poor. Just to give you a bit of history, actually, the Industrial Revolution had occurred in England, as you all will be knowing, because there were many scientific inventions, especially the steam engine. Gradually, industries came up in larger numbers. So with industry came prosperity in the United Kingdom. A very small country geographically, say as compared to India, their ships could trot around the entire globe, conquering one country after another. The very basis of this imperialism was wealth as well as unity. They had been together to spread their tentacles from one country to another. And the Kohinoor, the jewel of their crown, of course, was India. But the condition of the labor class in the factories was pitiable. Working conditions were such that they would frequently work for 14, 16 hours. They were given money, but the entrepreneurs, students of economics would be conversant with this term. The proprietors, naturally, they minted more money than the laborers did. Labor movements, trade union, these were unknown. People who had sensitivity, they were paid to see the exploitation of this class. It was thus that this doctrine of socialism and communism came forth. Of course, Karl Marx himself didn't live to see this being practiced in a wide scale, but people were inspired by this doctrine. In Russia, in China, these ideologies were taken up. But history has proven that they didn't give the full thing that people wanted. Economics, bread and butter, is certainly important. They had seen unity from one angle, but men and women, a human being probably require more than this. Roti, kapda or makan, कहते हैं ना? Roti, kapda or makan, the basic necessities of life. But a human being is more than this. So I'll just, since you are a student of economics, or many of you have studied economics, I'll remind you about a debate that we have to study in the development papers. It is known as growth versus redistribution debate. I just like to ask you listeners, I believe you have heard about this, haven't you? Growth versus redistribution debate. Have you heard about this? I believe these terms at least should be known to you. Am I correct? Amrita or teacher Ishita, certainly? Okay? Okay. So the growth versus redistribution debate roughly says this, that there is inequality in the country. Suppose in a country like India, in any country there is a degree of inequality. So the egalitarian means sameness. The idea of egalitarianism says that you should distribute your wealth equally among persons. In fact, there are indexes, which measure the degree of inequality. One measurement, I believe all students of economics are conversant with, it's known as the Lorenz curve. And from this, you have what is known as the Gini coefficient, by which you measure the degree of inequality in a country, okay, or in an area. Just to get an idea, suppose if you consider the total amount of wealth as 100, you can frequently see that out of this, probably 60% of the wealth is owned by, say, 10% of the population. And the rest, 40% of the wealth, is being enjoyed by 90% of the population. So this 90% of the population enjoys only 40% of the wealth. So this is plotted on two axes. One shows the population and the other shows the wealth, or the percentage rather. So this is known as the Lorenz curve. The fatter the Lorenz curve, if you remember, the fatter the Lorenz curve, the more the degree of inequality. So any person is sympathetic person would suggest that you reduce the degree of inequality. But that is easier said. Okay. So, what is the problem? Every year when the finance minister declares his or her budget, you can see the uproar. Large part of the uproar centers around the rate at which income tax is levied. Okay, because that pinches directly your pocket. So the idea for any developing country rather, is to tax more the rich and give or redistribute to the poor. This is redistribution. So you take away wealth for people from the rich people and distribute it among the poor. That is the idea of taxation. Yeah? So if I'm correct, I believe it's the same with you as well. You have to study about the principles of taxation in a paper known as public finance. Is it the same there as well in Symbiosis? So in public finance, actually, the idea is to redistribute wealth and to bring about unity, economic unity. You tend towards unity. Okay. But the problem is that if you bring more and more unity, taking away the wealth from the richer people, sometimes this acts as a disincentive. They feel that they are not being sufficiently encouraged by allowing them to earn more. That is why, because of this lacuna, I would say, that socialism has not succeeded in many countries. In fact, the pioneer country, Russia, which propelled socialism and communism on the world stage, it was found faltering, and the United Soviet Socialist Republic broke into pieces in the 1980s. So to summarize, we wanted to have redistribution, but the richer people, they feel that they are being hit more by taxation. And you will often see that the richer people are normally the more knowledgeable ones. So they are more conversant with the rules of taxation, with the mode of the government. They know about it all the more. So they pressurize on the government that their taxation shouldn't be high. In fact, in Soviet Russia, because the process of redistribution was tried very hard, production dwindled to a large extent. In fact, Ramakrishna Mission has a center in Russia. The Swami there, they would return to us headquarters and would tell us stories about how the economy was faltering. So unity was being attempted. Ethically, that is desirable. But sometimes that can lessen growth. Because unless the richer people have more capital in their hand, they do not do more savings. And all students of economics will be knowing, unless you have savings, you do not have investment. Unless you have investment, you do not have capital formation. What is investment in the terminology of economics? The increase in capital is investment. So unless you have savings, you cannot have more investment. That is, you do not have additional capital. Unless you have capital, the multiplier won't work, isn't it? In macroeconomics, we know the multiplier. So unless the investment multiplier works properly, the engine of growth doesn't work. So this is the dilemma, growth versus redistribution. If you redistribute more, then gradually, that is, if you give more to the poor, then the process of growth is thwarted. It is There's an obstacle on the path, actually. Okay. So what you believe theoretically as desirable in a society, in a community, sometimes you cannot implement that. So what you do actually, you try to seek a balance. This is what India has been trying to do. We had it started with socialism, which our constitution had incorporated the word socialist later on. But in the 1990s, gradually, globalization, privatization, liberalization, these came in. So that there was a large degree of removal of tariffs. Import gradually became more easily available. This led to huge competition. I remember going to the Rourkela steel plant. It was an enormous steel plant set up according to the 5-year plans. I was stunned to see the huge plants remaining idle. The people who I asked them, what's the matter? They told me, you see, we all had been employees of the Rourkela steel plant. Okay. But the steel plant is now having a gradual death. A huge public enterprise. It's gradually coming to its near end. Why? They asked them why. They said, you see, because of this gradually removal of tariff barriers. You have studied economics, isn't it? Removal of tariff barriers. More and more cheaper steel is available. So people do not buy from the government steel plants because demand is less, production is lesser. Because production is lesser, people are gradually being laid off. So what theoretically you consider as desirable, when you want to implement it in a big society, in a big community, it's not always easy because men are differently abled. They have different propensities. And if in the name of equality or unity, if you put all of them in the same box, then people cannot express themselves. So that is the difficulty actually. Okay. At the very beginning, Swami Ranganathanandaji was mentioned. Swami Ranganathanji was a great scholar monk of the Ramakrishna Mission, considered to be a proper monk in the heritage of Swami Vivekananda. And an international speaker, he has spoken in different countries. He has a book known as Enlightened Citizenship. Okay. I believe all students of economics and political science can read this book. It doesn't really deal with philosophy. I'll tell you in essence, in a nutshell, how it fuses the two. It says, you see, Vedanta declares that all beings are essentially divine. All of them have the huge potential within themselves. In this sense, they are one. But are they in reality? Who says? Some are born rich. Some are more intelligent. Some get a chance at the Symbiosis School of Economics. I think many appeared for the examinations, but many couldn't get through. So in the society, you have segregations depending on your knowledge, on your wealth, on your power, create different barriers. Okay. There's difference, inequality. Vedanta says, essentially you have the power within you. Swami Vivekananda says, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one, two, or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Then he adds a pungent line. He says, doctrines and dogmas, rituals and books, all these are but inessential details. You have got to practice these things, okay? Ranganathanji says, you see, Vedanta says, declares the unity of human beings, but they are outwardly different. Some are men, some are women, some are old, some are young, some are rich, some are poor. But at the ballot box, all of them in a democracy have the same power. Everyone casts one vote. Whether it is the richest person in the country, Mukesh Ambani, or the person below the poverty line, both of them have a single vote at the ballot box. In a sense, democracy has brought about practical democracy, practical equality, unity. So you must remember, this practice is not an easy one. The founders of the Constitution, the writers of the Constitution took great pains to see, to enunciate this theory. Just for the knowledge of students, India is the largest democracy in the world. Not in terms of the size of the country, but in the number of the people who would be casting their vote. So democracy as a principle, as a political principle, is being practiced at a very huge scale in this country. Okay. So Vedanta says that all essentially have the same power, which you can manifest within yourself, and you are trying to practice that at a ballot box. Why the difference between the two? Why are men unequal? Are there ways to bridge this gap? I started out by saying that socialism and communism, they had tried to bridge this gap, but their methods were largely economic ones. If you have studied the Srafa model, Srafa himself was a leftist economist, you see how they have built on the ideas of Marx. Okay. In Bengal, we have had a long lineage of leftist thought. In fact, when we were students of economics at the Calcutta University, some of our professors were hardcore leftist economists. Okay. So it was under their initiative that a separate course was launched, Economics of Marx. Okay. So I was left a little puzzled. Should I go for this course? But I found that the teachers who were eager to start this course were very sincere ones. So I remember that was the first year of the Economics of Marx course. Already by the time I had already decided that I would join the Ramakrishna Mission, but still I went for that course. It was good for me. I learned a lot. I had studied microeconomics, macroeconomics, statistics, development economics. But you, student of economics, you must understand that all of these courses basically originate in what you call as capitalist countries. Because the textbooks you will be seeing, textbooks are mainly published by, say, McGraw-Hill, HarperCollins. Am I correct? Am I speaking correctly? So these are publishers who have their roots largely, I would say, in Western countries, America, England, mostly America. Their models, their examples even draw from the American economy. So I remember when I started doing my research in economics, my research was on the topic measurement of inequality and poverty. What it focused on was largely, all of us, we know that there's lack of unity, okay? So, but how do you measure it? What's the quantum? Can you give an objective measurement for that? There are measures. Say, all of you have heard the name of Amartya Sen. There is a saint's measure of poverty. But can we have other measures as well? We are working on these lines. So when working, I start wondering. Sir, I had studied the consumer behavior theory very thoroughly. Okay, that was very fascinating for me, because all of us, you know the consumer behavior theory. The theory, what largely caught my imagination was, because from utility function you have an indifference curve. From indifference curve, you come to know the demand for a commodity X or a commodity Y. Okay, so this part is philosophical. You see, philosophical. When you draw an indifference curve of an individual, you are essentially trying to dig out the preferences from his mind. Have you studied the revealed preference in your consumer behavior theory? Just ask me. Revealed preference. Have you? I think revealed preference. That's a topic in consumer behavior theory. It was started by, the actual theory was given by Paul Samuelson. Okay. Revealed preference. Revealed preference says that, you see, to construct an indifference curve, you go to the market, watch an individual, and from his behavior, you can construct the indifference curve. All of us, we know that indifference curve is there. But how do we really construct an indifference curve? It says revealed preference. The preference that is revealed in the market, that tells you about the indifference curve of an individual. That's the theory, revealed preference. So I was reading it, I was wondering that today, can't we have among revealed preference a sense of welfare or selflessness? You remember, all of you economic students know that when we read production or profit maximization, we take it for granted that profit maximization is the goal of the producer. Similarly, for a consumer, we take it for a certainty that he likes his own consumption of, say, X or Y or Z. And his utility function is constructed on the basis of this. I used to wonder that in addition to this, can't we add another dimension to it and say that, well, I like enjoying good food, I like wearing good clothes, but I also like that my neighbor is also well fed and well clothed. This element of selflessness, can't these be incorporated into the utility function as well? There have been thinking on these lines. Okay, you know that complements, substitutes, then influenced by the utility function of others. These are things that you learn in consumer behavior, but these are not stressed. What I wanted to say is this idea of ethics is also a component in our life. In fact, the countries which we call as developed economies, there, even the ordinary persons, they get access to the basic necessities of life. Say, health facilities, food, shelter. These are things which even the relatively lower down the strata income, he gets access to. I remember when I went to Bombay city, Bombay, I had gone there a number of times. At Pune, I had visited twice. At Bombay, you get bewitched, means you are puzzled by the amount of inequality. Okay, we have a center at Khar. Ramakrishna Mission Center at Khar area, Bombay. And little farther ahead is the Dadar. Dadar is a big railway station in Bombay, isn't it? The big railway station. So whenever you go near the Dadar station, you will see in the morning large number of laborers when I went there first, I used to wonder, why are they sitting there? They are sitting there just waiting for prospective employers, actually. They come from the rural areas, sit near the railway stations, looking for jobs. Okay. Why do they come to the towns? Because they feel that even by this process, they would earn more by them staying in the villages. In economics, we read this rural-urban migration, isn't it? Rural-urban migration. So this is also a process by which the town and the village comes nearer. The income of the village persons also gradually comes near the income of the town people. Or at least the children of these persons who live in the bastis even, they get over time, they go to schools, colleges, and start dreaming big. They will also be big. This is the way actually. But one thing which struck me, I remember, I also read this in the economics book, that in these cities, there are huge inequality. This is what characterizes. We have got good learning at the colleges or universities, that in a sense was also at the expense of the people of the country. Because a large portion of the education that we have is subsidized, because government taxes the people and helps by developing the infrastructure and education institutions or building bridges, roads, safety measures, so that your study is ensured. But there is a large majority staying in villages or in the slums in the cities who do not get the opportunity. So he would say, very harsh words, he would say, I consider him a traitor who, having been educated at the expense of the poor, does not pay the least regard for them. Okay, he would say these things. Okay, so these are the things which, in a social sense, in the society at large, if such thoughts start percolating, then the economy or the society as a whole, it can improve over time. Okay, so he would often say, you see, in India there have been great thoughts in Vedanta. If you study the Bhagavad Gita is a book of action and knowledge. Okay, so just to help you recapitulate the storyline, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they had assembled on the battlefield, and the foremost warrior among the Pandavas, he is Arjuna. Suddenly, he is caught in a dilemma. He says that it is immoral to kill my own relatives and win back the kingdom. Okay. The entire Pandava clan, soldiers, are looking up to him, that he leads them in the battlefield. At the opposite side are the Kauravas. In the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, even the conch shells are blown. The battle is about to start. At this point of time, he suddenly says that, you see, nimittani chapashami viparitani Keshava. Hey Keshava, hey Krishna, I feel that these are wrong symbols, omens. In English, this word is there, O-M-E, omen. A dark cloud is coming on the country, because the entire Kshatriya clan will be wiped out after this war. Moreover, if we win back the kingdom, many of our relatives would be lying dead. People would say that for the sake of the kingdom, they didn't mind killing their own relatives even. When you read this, the first chapter, in fact, you almost start sympathizing with Arjuna. You feel that what Arjuna said was good. It's correct. Why should you fight with your own relatives? In English, there is a saying, you must not wash dirty linens in public. Okay. if you want to wash dirty linens, do that in private. A fight amongst your own relatives must not come out into the open, in the battlefield. But finally, he was puzzled actually. He said to Krishna, Shishya Shadi Mam Tvam Prapanna. He said, I am your relative, Krishna, but today I am your disciple as well. Remember, Krishna was his friend, his relative, and had now opted to ride his chariot. He's the charioteer. And Arjuna, fully armored, is ready to fight. And at that point of time, he has cold feet. Okay. Before going into any drastic and big step, you have such dilemmas in the mind. But Arjuna was a good person. He surrendered to Krishna and said, please advise me on what should be done. It is thus that Krishna gave the teachings of the Gita. Interestingly, he told Arjuna that you should fight in the battlefield. You ought to do your duties in life. Sometimes your duties in life can be harsh. He says, you see, any action that you undertake in the world, dhumena agni eva abrita. Just like when you light a fire, smoke will come out. Sahajam karma kauntya, sadosham api natyajit. Sahajam, you are born with a work. Sahaja, born with. Sadosham, even if there are some blemishes there, do not give that up. Because your natural propensity is towards that. You easily discover yourself there. If you give that up now, after a few days, you would feel, no, it was wrong on my part to do that. So he advises Krishna, advises Arjuna to stick on to his work. So remember, in India, ethics has never forbidden people to be active in life. Religion has not worked as the opium of the people here. Vivekananda would say, you see, because you have not listened to the teachings of religion for a long time, for a number of centuries, that is why you have been trampled by the foreigners. It's that you rise up. You have great potential. Our country has a wealth of philosophy, a mine of knowledge. Yes, you must learn the Western sciences, the Western methods, the analytical methods, but also believe that your country also has a very rich philosophy of its own. You need not be a mere beggar at the door of Western civilization. You must believe that you are possessed of great amount of wealth. Only a person who can give something in exchange has the respect of others. A mere beggar is never respected by others, Swamiji says. Okay. So Vivekananda, what he did was to awaken this national psyche. You just see, more than 125 years have passed after the Chicago Pardon of Religions. In this fast changing era, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, yesterday's news gets stale today. Lata Mangeshkar ji has asked a few days back. I see most have almost, that is, forgotten by this time. Everyone is busy in his or her work. Life is fast-paced, going ahead at a very, very brisk pace. Today, our schools and colleges have started in full measure. We perceived the unity as all the students were there in the schools. It was such a joy to see them together. Lata Mangeshkar has gone out of the mind. Even in these times, you remember after 125 years, Swami Vivekananda. Why? You must ask yourself. This is because, truthfully speaking, he has uttered some philosophy which is perennial. It's not Swami Vivekananda per se. It is because he has been the carrier of an eternal message, which tells you that our country has a very rich heritage to pass on to others. These truths, eternal of the Vedanta, of the Gita, will act as nectar to the civilization, which is thirsting for these messages of immortality. I just read a small paragraph from his Chicago address. These are such enlightening words, okay? I think you students also would enjoy this, okay? You know, in the Christian doctrine, because I had studied in the Christian school for some years, there, essentially it says that men are born sinners from that Adam and Eve, and you have got to have confession about your sins. But Swamiji says, the Vedanta says you are essentially divine. Just as clouds come in front of the sun, and the sun is there covered with the shadow of the clouds. But as the clouds move away, in the full lustre of the sun, you see the power, potential. So Swamiji at the Chicago Parliament, he, in his own words, give these messages from the Upanishads. I'll just read this. I'll leave open for questions, okay? From the Chicago Parliament. Children of immortal bliss, what a sweet, what a hopeful name. Allow me to call you brethren by that sweet name. Heirs of immortal bliss. Yes, the Hindu refuses to call you sinners. You are the children of God, the sharers of immortal bliss, holy and perfect beings. You divinities on earth, sinners. It is a sin to call a man so. It is a standing libel on human nature. Come up, O lions, and shake off the delusion that you are sheep. You are souls immortal, spirits free, blessed and eternal. You are not matter. You are not bodies. Matter is your servant, not you the servant of matter. Students, to you I tell, often at this age you are caught in a dilemma about values, about how to lead your lives in future. Sometimes you can get into wrong company as well. But you must, just like a boat which is tethered to a strong post, doesn't drift away along the waves. You too have got to have a philosophy, a mooring in life. Okay. Then you will see, you will have focus in life. It's not merely earning money. You must remember that you have great potential within you that cannot be confined only to earning money for yourself. You are a citizen. You have got to give back something to your country, to the society. And finally, you must realize that you have great potential within yourself. You are divinities, as Vivekananda says. Okay. So with this message, for the time being, I stop and leave it open to questions. Yes, Varun, thank you.